Joining me now is the panel for this Friday. NBC News Chief White House Correspondent Kristen Welker, Republican strategist Doug Heye, and Cornell Belcher, Democratic pollster and NBC News political analyst. Let's dispense with Trump very quickly, Kristen.
Good luck.
Yeah, I know.
We've wanted to say that for a while.
I hear you. So everything you hear is he's itching to be more in whatever this is in his mind. Clearly getting out early, because there had been some reports that, like, others were going to jump in this race early, trying to beat Trump to the punch. Perhaps he's heard this.
Absolutely, he's heard this. And I also think, Chuck, obviously we've been talking more and more about how Republicans have momentum heading into next Tuesday. I think he's emboldened by those reports. Look, he teased it himself. He all but walked up to the line of saying, I'm in this race. And so I think that's why you have aides saying they think it's likely this month. But you have to caveat it with the fact that we don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday yet. He's going to be paying very close attention. And everything with the former president comes with a caveat because, as you know, he likes trial balloons. He likes to throw things out and see what the reception is.
Yeah, Doug, this, I assume, not the closing idea Republicans would want to be dealing with, whether you're Mehmet Oz in Latrobe, Pennsylvania tomorrow, or Chuck Grassley last night.
Yeah, Donald Trump has been largely absent from the campaign trail as an issue. That's been good for Republicans. They can talk about crime and inflation, the border, and things like that. So what's the closing message now? Donald Trump getting what Donald Trump wants the most, attention. And so it distracts at a time when Republicans really need to keep that momentum going.
Cornell, realistically, is it usable for your side?
Well, look, anytime the conversation turns to Donald Trump, it's very usable for Democrats, right? You're talking about someone who has, you talk about job approval of Biden. You know whose numbers are a lot worse than Biden? It's Donald Trump. So the more attention that he can focus on himself, the better it is for Democrats.
Let's stay on Trump, and I want to throw out something that I've had a few Democratic strategists say to me, which is the party in general is too obsessed with Trump, and this campaign has shown it. What say you?
I don't know what that means.
Meaning everything is centered around Trump, the democracy issue, that there's this focus on Trump, that Trump sort of eats at the brains, and it's like taking people's eye off the crime and economy ball.
I don't think he's eating at our brain. I think he's more worried about Donald Trump being on the campaign trail than I think Democrats are worried about Donald Trump being on the campaign trail. But look, Donald Trump is a polarizing, galvanizing figure. Donald Trump is someone who has rallied the Republican base. But in back-to-back elections where Donald Trump's name was on the ballot, Republicans failed to get a majority. And so if he's out in front again, and by the way, I'm going to go on record right now. If the turnout is 50% or better, again, Republicans will not win a majority, at least of the voters now, because of districting. As you know, they can win a less than a majority and still pick up seats.
Kristen, the White House certainly is acting like a bunch of people who think they're going to lose on Tuesday, and they're sitting here trying to reinforce Kathy Hochul. They're going to a lot of blue areas, not going to many swing areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And President Biden was in New Mexico, a state that he won. They're also just defending this strategy, what you just asked Cornell about, because obviously the president had this big democracy speech. Democracy is on the ballot. And they say, look, they're trying to make the closing argument and trying to point out extremism within the Republican Party in all of its forms, that it's not just about this narrow argument, that it pertains to abortion, that it pertains to issues related to the economy. But I think the skepticism and the concern among some Democrats is, first of all, not everyone's singing from the same playbook and songbook. And second of all, the president hasn't exactly been beating this drum in a way that I think people feel has been cohesive throughout the course of the past several weeks.
Doug, there's another thing that seems, this phenomenon of Democrats almost suffering more right now in blue states. They're certainly on the House side. And that the hypotheticals don't work, particularly the hypothetical on an abortion ban. And frankly, you could throw in the hypothetical about losing the democracy. It's certainly a hypothetical if you're focused on it, but the voters, the last remaining voters, they're focused on the grocery bill first. They care about the democracy, but the grocery bill. Is that why, Republicans just focusing on crime, do you think that's going to be what you guys look to and say, that's why we won?
Yeah, look, the campaigns, you learn a lot about this campaign by watching college football. And so watching the North Carolina Pitt game, so 2 Senate races happening last Saturday, nothing but campaign ads. And in North Carolina, Sherry Beasley was largely talking about abortion. Ted Budd was talking about crime. You also have 2 Supreme Court justice races in North Carolina, so crime's a bigger issue there. So they're going to tell you what they want to talk about, but so will voters. And it's why I was surprised by Biden's remarks, just a couple blocks from here. He essentially said in his speech the other night, here's what should be important to you as a voter. When voters are saying, here's what's important to us.
But you can walk and chew gum at the same time.
But you can't afford gum. That's the problem.
Well, this is really interesting to me because you know who's most concerned about the economy and who's most stressed out about the economy? It's actually the people who are doing best. Are actually a lot of Republican voters. Right. Like I got a feeling that if we had this many jobs being created, this sort of low unemployment, and this sort of our economy is still growing, and this sort of consumer spending, I got a feeling this 80% of Republicans wouldn't be saying we're in a recession
Chuck,
right now.
I think the question is, does any of this, the president's speech, this buzz about whether former President Trump is going to announce in the next few weeks, does it make a difference? And I've been talking to people on both sides of the aisle who feel as though everything is largely baked in at this point.
I want to focus on crime. I don't know if you've read the Stan Greenberg memo that's been making the rounds over the last 48 hours, but I have an excerpt of it here. This is Bill Clinton's former pollster, and he was saying, he wrote a whole memo about the crime issue for Democrats, and he said, I was asked repeatedly by colleagues and campaigning Democrats, what should we do, what should we be saying on crime when I'm attacked for defunding the police? To be honest, Greenberg writes, Democrats were in such terrible shape on crime at this late point, I said, speak as little as possible or mumble. Nothing they've said up until now was reassuring and helpful. And there was more to it. He basically said Democrats, that the messaging that stuck to the Democrats in 2020 never got fixed. What say you?
Well, first of all, Stan is like the godfather of polling. I once interned at Stan Greenberg.
I think some people wish they could have interned at Stan Greenberg.
But he's right. I mean, but here's the thing, Chuck. Republicans have had a huge advantage on crime for the last 2 decades. Like, it's not news that Republicans have a huge advantage on crime, and they drive the crime issue to mobilize and motivate their base. And again, what did Trump end his last election campaign with? If I lose, the suburbs will be burning. Right? It's a classic fear tactic. But again, the Democrats are coming again with a choice between Republicans and Democrats on a number of issues. They're always going to have the advantage on crime.
Well, what was interesting, he said the only thing that would work right now is not just advocating that you support law enforcement, that you want 100,000 new cops on the street.
But Democrats, some Democrats, and
I've been saying that.
I've tested it, right? Democrats in Congress have actually.
Is he right that if you say more, if you say, hey, we want to give you money for more law enforcement, that's a winning message?
But you have to inoculate, right? You're not going to win on crime. But how do you inoculate on crime? We've given billions more to law enforcement, and Republicans want to do away with the FBI.
That is a problem.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be a victim of crime or even watch the TV ads to know it's out there. All you have to do is go to a drugstore where you have to push a button and somebody will come in and unlock the shampoo or the deodorant for you. So you weren't a part of any kind of stealing, but you see that it happened. And you see this happening where there are videos of people who come in and it's a group of 10 people and half of an aisle goes and it scares you.
It does feel like policies in Portland, Oregon are being hung around the neck of basically every Democrat.
Absolutely. But this is what I think is so fascinating. This is the challenge of Democrats' messaging writ large, because candidate Biden was saying we have to fund the police. Former President Obama was saying we have to fund the police. And yet, once he got into office, it ceased to continue to break through. And that's their same challenge on the economy.
But it's it's a scarecrow, right? Democrats aren't taking away funding from law enforcement. They're not. Right? It is a false equivalence. And I know we're not about facts, but the facts are that crime over the last decade.
It's a huge perception problem.
Right.
It's up, and it's very likely. I talked with somebody in law enforcement, Cornell, that said, unfortunately, we're not here yet, but in about 4 years, we're going to say this was all pandemic related. And that is what it's, but we don't, but in fairness, he said nobody can say that for sure.
And tens of millions of dollars in campaign spending scaring the hell out of American people about
voters vote on feelings, not on data, though. That's the reality.
Well,
that is absolutely correct.
Welcome to American Politics 101. And with that, we will pause this conversation. Terrific panel. Happy Friday. We got you smiling, Cornell.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.